Hello, hello, hello. This will be a video that is available for all subscribers to the Patreon. So for the paid subscribers and for the free subscribers. So that's a good thing. We're going to do a drawing, underdrawing, because this is going to be a painting that we're going to do more of an indirect painting. So we're going to do an underdrawing, underpainting, and then a paint layer. But the paint layer is going to be very, very controlled because in our Discord, you're invited to visit our Discord. You're invited to be a paid subscriber so you can visit our Discord. There is wonderful tone to our conversations. I feel they're healthy, they're paint driven. So you're all very invited. There's been questions surrounding the notion of controlled value. And I do feel that that's something that I have like an affiliation for. And I do have a tendency to be very, very interested in to have my paintings kind of be about that, or an aspect of my paintings be about that value control, about value restriction. I can't tell you exactly why I was interested in those things. I think it happened quite organically. I think it's just something that I'm naturally inclined towards. And, I just didn't question it and I kind of followed that path. Anecdotally, I think I was, I noticed that I was becoming highly, like acutely aware of these things when I would look at the background. Let's say it's a multi-figured composition, like a historical painting, let's say. And there would be figures in the background that, of course, if you want to keep them in the background, you would restrict their, a ton of things, but you would restrict mainly their value. So you don't want them to have like a high contrast. You don't want to work with those figures in a kind of a full value scale. And you would also control saturation, for example. So, in very practical, very simplified terms, they would be grayer figures that have low contrast, low saturation figures. And I would just be enamored by, the control that the painter exercised when painting those figures in order for them to sort of remain in the background and be kind of like this it's almost like the history of the painting is happening in the background. The before the scene that's taking place in the foreground in your first plane, or in your mid plane, but in the planes that are closer to the viewer, let's say, if you're thinking about space, three-dimensionally. But so those figures in the background, that action that was taking place in the background, to me was so important, was so relevant, that even though I understood contextually why it had to remain in the background, I always wondered, like my brain always thought, what if that is the painting? What if that little bit of background is the painting? What if that little bit of atmosphere that is enveloping this tiny little bit of story, what if that is the painting? And that question just kind of like bounced around my brain constantly, and I started making paintings that would follow those kind of rules that the painters had set for themselves in order to control those little bits of their paintings. So it's a very specific story about how I found my way to those moments, and to understand them as something that could technically be part of a painting, but also affect the emotionality, the tone to it. I'm not saying the tone is in value, that's kind of obvious, but just the mood of it. And because I understood myself more as a tonalist painter, so for me, atmosphere was such an important part, excuse me, of just the essence of the painting that the essence that I want my paintings to carry. It just, it's almost like I just almost fell straight for this peg that was shaped, in the shape of my brain. and my emotion and my perception. I just fit perfectly into that. So I became super, super interested about that. Um, so there's been questions about that kind of level of control and how to use it in a painting, let's say, um, in our Discord. And even though I have yet to do the painting chronologically, the painting that we're supposed to do is the final painting of Rhino, but I feel super satisfied with the information that we gleaned from the sketch, and I feel that we're on the right track. So I can put that to the side for just a little bit and say, okay, let's start a painting that is going to deal with those issues. And I started looking back at some exercises that I had done, regarding that level of control in prior paintings, and I found some of the first videos. I think it's actually the first videos before we were OPL, like we launched OPL. I was doing some very, lo-fi, cobbled up videos regarding value, and I've always felt value is probably the strongest kind of like fundamental attribute that you can learn in the in the hopes of image making. I think value is the strongest of them all. I mean, some people are going to say, I guess all of the fundamental ones are important, like shapes and their disposition, within a picture plane, which is composition, drawing, which drawing can fall into that if you think of it abstractly. But when you begin to flesh out an image, value is everything. At least I think so. The decisions that you make regarding value are going to affect your painting enormously, enormously. So I watched some of the videos. I rewatched some of the videos that we did, way back, and they're kind of painful because I truly don't feel comfortable with any sort of voiceover. But I thought it would be really cool to kind of re-examine what was happening in one of those videos specifically, and to do it once again with Fer, which I thought was kind of poetic also, since I've been really, really following, how my kids grow up through drawing and painting. I also thought, well, what if Fer is the subject of this exercise, as she was, many years ago. And so I'll show you what the exercise was many, many years ago. This is, where is Fer? So that's a reference. So on top of me, that's what we're going to paint. But let's look at the, not the grayscale, but here. So this is, let me turn off our reference. Okay, and do that. Okay, so to explain it a little bit better, this is in a very restricted value range. So, before we look at the images, let's also bring this up, the grayscale. Okay, so we can put this on top. Even though the range that is being depicted or kind of exhibited in the bottom, that says limited range of value, is not quite the value range that we're going to use for this particular painting. I've yet to decide what I'm going to do with this particular painting, but we'll talk about it as we're drawing. But the important thing to think about, and this is a very, very simple premise. Most paintings, I'm not saying this is not like a blanket statement, but most paintings that come from a sort of naturalist impulse, let's say, depict a range of value that is usually like a healthy, nice, full range of value. So you're going to have your darkest dark, you're going to have midtones, and you're going to have lightest lights. So what that means, if we try to quantify that, you're going to have values, that span the 0 to 2 range. You're going to have values that span the 4 to 6 range, and you're going to have values that span the 8 to 10 range. Usually, that's what happens. If you want to depict form, and you want to heighten, to emphasize its three-dimensionality. So, You want to really, really, really depict how a shape, a three-dimensional shape is traversing through space. Your best bet is to use the full range of value. That's the best thing you can do. Value is there to aid you in representing three-dimensionality. So if you use the full range of value, you'll have the best possibility at describing a shape's three-dimensional aspect. So that's great. That's great. Does that mean that if we place ourselves in a limited range of value, which can be anywhere, in our value scale, it could be anywhere. It could be from 0 to 3, it could be from 4 to 7, or it could be from 7 to 10. If you place yourself, does that affect our notion of three-dimensionality? Maybe it affects it. Maybe it creates like a veil, on top of that knowledge, that comprehension of three-dimensionality. But our brain is not dumb. Our brain does understand three-dimensionality, even if we shorten that full range of value. So what that means in practical terms is that we can place paintings, images, anywhere in our value scale, anywhere. And so for this particular fair painting, I imagine I was working from values maybe 6 to 10 or 7 to 10, something like that. I'm going to sort of, no, that's not it. I'm going to turn off this one. So I'm kind of 6 or 7 to 10. That's our value range right here. So our darkest darks are not even going to be close to anything that is resembling like a 0 value, like the darkest dark. They could be a value 7, and we can interpret those as darkest darks. Now, because paintings are meant to be judged contextually, which means that you're not meant to compare one painting to another painting. Like, you're not meant to look at one painting and then have your brain also peek at the painting that it's right next to it. A painting is a very, very kind of enclosed context. A picture frame, the two-dimensional kind of frame that is created, is like an invitation to look at a world that has its own very specific rules. So it's very rare for us to look at one painting and then try to compare it to another in order to see, let's say, like how less contrasty it is, or how less saturated it is, or how much moodier it is. No. Sometimes we look at a painting and we are just engulfed by it. We accept all the rules and all the parameters that the painting is kind of dictating for us. So, having said that, our brain is going to, very, very quickly and very almost like obediently, if we do our job well, accept that those are our darks. If a value 6 is our dark, our brain is going to say, okay, I guess that's the game we're playing. That's the dark. I'm going to define dark for this painting and this painting alone, because again, every single painting is a separate universe. But for this moment of interaction between myself as a viewer and the painting, I'm going to define dark as a value 6 or a value 7. And that's all you need. That's all you need for your brain to be open enough and to be willing to play enough so that it can say, great, I'm placing myself here. And why do we need our brain to want to play? Because what you don't want is your brain feeling like something is lacking. Like your brain saying, no, these darks are not dark enough. Like, I'm not willing to understand this as three-dimensional, or I'm not willing to see this image for what it's offering me. What I'm going to do is understand it as something that is a lesser image, a handicapped image, an image that is lacking something. We don't want to do that. We don't want to reach that degree of like critical thinking or like hyper rational thinking, because if we do that, we're kind of losing what the image is proposing to us. We are kind of looking outside the image for an explanation that doesn't really reside in the image. So we don't want to do that. We always want to hopefully just kind of have our guard down and just look at an image and say, what do you need from me as a viewer? And if you do your job properly, because images also have to help us out in terms of making those things obvious for our brain, the reason why we are placing ourselves in a limited value scale. And if those things seem interesting for our brain, we as viewers are going to be like, yeah, I'm up for this. This is super, super cool. Let's do this. If not, if the image is, cloudy, and not in this way, but cloudy in the sense that it's not easy to identify why those choices were made. Yeah, that kind of builds a little bit of doubt, in our brain, and that doubt is the one that tries to then find answers outside the picture plane, outside our painting. So we don't want to do that. We don't. We want to be hopefully in control of our painting enough so that the brains of those viewers, of those unknown viewers, are going to be enticed and excited about playing with our rules. So what did I do here? For the same image, I tried to imagine 3 different alternatives. And I would say 1 and 2 are good. Now that I'm looking sort of critically at it, I would say 1 and 2 are good because they do shift the lighter value to different places that can become somewhat hierarchical. The third one, I think it's a little, not that I wouldn't enjoy painting something like that, but I think it further restricts our value range. So I would say that the third one is okay, but if the whole point of the exercise was to, let's say, work from 7 to 10, it doesn't kind of make sense to now have a painting that is, lacking that value 10. So let me show you the one that I chose as my final option for this painting. This is going to be gray. Let's move to the second slide. So I chose the, fair wearing, I think it was one of my shirts maybe. So for her, for that tiny little frame, it was like this oversized shirt that became super abstract here in the bottom, which is really nice. It looks landscapey and, very, very kind of abstract. So I really liked those moments. And then eventually you reach the collar and you realize, okay, this is taking shape as a shirt, the sort of dropped shoulders, and then you see the portrait. So it's very nice. I thought it was simple, but it was a nice way of introducing that light value as an important shape, and a shape that directs you towards, a portrait that is being framed by the darker value. So very simple, very effective, I would say, in terms of using those values as compositional tools, which is something that we don't quite think about. Usually we think about value as just an aid in terms of depicting three-dimensionality. So this was good in trying to remember how powerful value is when commanding how to traverse the picture plane. So when understanding that you can use value as a compositional tool. So I thought that was good. That was a good way of exploring options and then choosing one that made sense in terms of the value placement, and then executing an image. Now, this is tough because in both of these cases, we're not using references that fit super, super nicely into a value range. We're not talking about a painting that's done in dawn or dusk, where, usually value ranges are restricted. If you're looking at the more atmospheric part of these two separate moments, that would make a lot of sense, right? This is not. This is almost like an imposition of a restriction of value in an image that doesn't necessarily work, based on that imposition. So that's a tough thing, because we are trying to, in this case, almost like fit square peg round hole, right? Because our source, if I can turn this on, let's say, where's our reference? So our source is, the tone, the mood of our source material, this photo of Fer. Pardon the moire, but that's, it's a ton of like little texture shrunken down. So, I'm sorry about that. But the tone of this image up here is one that I feel is aided by value. So, the darker hair framing the sort of lighter tones on the portrait, the wonderful light shape of the party hat, then like a mid-tone for her sweater, a lighter mid-tone, with the cushions and whatever they are of the mattress, and then the darker shape of her uniform and that one stripe that is speaking about her hips and then her leg. Super, super nice. So I do think it's a painting that would benefit, if we think of this reference as something that can, be translated into a painting. I think that it would be a painting that could be benefited by the range, the healthy range, the broad range of value that we have in this image. And I would, describe this image, for example, as one that depicts the full range of value. It doesn't have to, try to do it. It's just there. There's enough midtones, there's enough darks, and there's enough lights for us to understand that there's range in every one of those sections of our value scale. So what we're going to do is kind of like a really interesting exercise, because it's not just a translation of one-to-one. So what do I mean by that? I'm not taking a lighting condition, a natural occurring lighting condition that is already restricted, and then translating it into a value scale that accommodates that restriction. That is kind of simple, right? Because it's like, I can't see much in the light range, or I can't see much in the mid range, or I can't see much in the dark range. And then what do? You just pick the dark range, you just pick the mid range, or you just pick the light range. And that's it. It's almost like a one-to-one. You'll see like perfect echoing of the values that you're observing and the values in your painting. And that's totally fine, 100%. Once again, if we were painting those lighting conditions, early in the morning or beginning of the afternoon, we would notice that constriction of a value range. But I think in painting, it's also super important to know that we can do whatever the hell we want in a painting. So we can control what is happening in our painting. And in this case, we can control the range of values that we're going to use in our painting. That's super, super, super important. So this is going to be one of those exercises. But we're going to start at the beginning, because everything has a beginning. And the beginning for this painting is just going to be the placement and the drawing. We're not going to try to do like super beautiful drawing today, but just make it work within our dimensions of this piece of paper. And we're going to try to place, all this information, wonderful information that we have up here in this piece of paper. And then we're going to do, if we need to redraw it, we'll do that. If we need to do a video for the underpainting, we'll do that. If we need to do a video checking possibilities, in terms of a restrictive value scale, we're going to do those. And then we're going to do a final painting, which I do think it's like a super, super interesting space to discuss value, to really, really discuss value and not just encapsulate value in what's most common, which is, again, being faithful to nature. Like, I recognize value relationships in nature and I translate them into my painting. That is a very, very traditional way of exercising what is probably most fundamental about painting and painting from life, for sure, which is the recognition of values and the translation into your drawing or painting. That is super, super important. There's no doubt about that. I don't ever want to put that into doubt. I think that should be part of everyone's experience when learning how to draw and paint. But this is actually pushing that a little bit further, which is saying, hey, if you had to change those, if you had to place them, in this, particularly restricted range of values, what would you do? and why would you do the things that you do in your painting, and how would that restriction affect your painting? So we're going to end up looking at three options just to follow, past Nicolas, past, the past value exercise by Nicolas. We're going to, I don't know why I said Nicolas, my past exercise, Jesus fuck, my past exercise, and we're going to follow those three value possibilities. And we'll see where that takes us. And we'll evaluate each, and then we'll say, hey, I think this is kind of interesting for this painting, and we'll take it from there. Okay, but for this one, we're going to draw. We're going to draw. We're not going to try to make like a beautiful drawing. That's not the objective here. And it's just about placement. So let me do this real time because I haven't done it. We're going to put the trustiest tool that I have. So let me turn this off. One of my most important tools, kneaded eraser. Why do you say it's one of my most important tools? Because I do this with a kneaded eraser. Okay, I dropped it. Not that. I take my phone, this is my source of, this is what I see when I look at every single painting that I'm painting. And I put pieces of kneaded eraser. Because I'm painting on a table, inclined table, I do that. Well, I actually do this. And I just push it. I just push it onto the table. So now it's secure. Secure. Allegedly, it has fallen many a time. So it is secure enough. It is secure enough so that we can look at a reference. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to draw fade. This is tough because I am so, look, if I get close, look at that. Look at that. So the tiniest bit of movement to get close to my drawing, I'm already in frame. So I'm going to try not to be in frame, and I'm just going to scribble first. Scribble, 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 scribble. Okay. I've noticed that for me, this may not work for everyone, and that's totally fine. Some people need to be super, super patient when they're drawing, and other people, and I would say that that's me, I need to go very quickly initially, trying to understand like the bigger shapes in my drawing, because if I don't do that, then I realize that I take too long in moments that are irrelevant for the painting or the drawing. I have a tendency to just be so bewildered by just about everything. Like I'm easily excitable, I would say. So I get so excited by moments that are secondary or moments that are truly not important. And if I do that, and especially if I do that at this initial stage, I tend to have like a drawing that falls apart. So we don't want to do that. So I try, emphasis on try. I try to move somewhat quickly through my drawing. And establish if these relationships are right. I think this is okay. I think these are okay. It's pretty straight here, going up. And I'm not doing it, I'm not pressing super hard on my color pencil because I mean, this is not a drawing. This is not a drawing where I'm like reacting a ton. If this is going to be a an indirect painting, there's going to be plenty of moments that I can try to approach the information that I have here and reassess that information. So I'm giving myself the chance to understand that those options are open for me. Okay, so quicker. Because I think I stayed a little too long on that angle of the head, but I stayed too long because it's probably like the most important part of the painting. Just the way she's kind of embracing that pillow, that cushion from our mattress. I always say cushion. I don't know if cushions need to be horizontal, like that you sit on a cushion. Are the back part of, even if it's a cushion, it's not a pillow. So is the back part of a mattress that, if your mattress is symmetrical, that's what I'm asking. So if your mattress, like this part up here, looks exactly like the part that's here. So let's say that that's a big cushion and that's a big cushion. And then that looks like that. And then that looks like that. Aren't those things, what do you call those? Aren't they kind of like the same? I don't know. Stupid questions. My brain full of them. So thank you. Okay, so I think that little embrace was very, very nice. I didn't pose this, by the way. This is just Fer naturally being overly dramatic, hugging the mattress. So I don't know. Okay, so a little bit that I'm adoring the sleeve. It's so big. It's so big. That moment is so amazing because it's such a great shape that I am absolutely loving that shape. Okay. She's got kind of big lower lips because she's like her dad. So that's cool. I don't know why I'm getting distracted in there. I should move. No, I'm here because I want this little moment to be right. I think that's where her head is kind of placed really, really nicely. So I need to be extra careful. I think that angle is a little bit more acute. Okay. I think that's kind of cool. Okay. Okay. And we'll figure that later. But that's good. That's good. Plane of light also affecting the hair. It comes out here. Nice. Angle. Absolutely adoring. Okay, I need more space. So, okay. So that's even, I have to drop that shoulder even more. Okay. Let's try to get that right. That's here. I love when sweaters give you, like hoodies, they give you the, I don't know what this is called. The sewing line, maybe? Is that what it would be called? But they give you these sewing lines because they're so telling of what is the back, where is the shoulder. It is so nice. It tells you about the body rotating. So I was missing some of the space here. It's maybe not that exaggerated, but I'm loving this shape so much that if I have to pick one so by that, but what I mean by saying if I have to pick one is if I have to pick the option of making something look and feel like what it actually looks and feels like, if I have to pick between that or if I have to pick between the feeling that I get when something moves me. And when I say moves me, I usually associate something moving me. So moving me means that it's a little irrational. Irrational. Because it now doesn't, kind of accommodate itself in the rational aspect of observation. Something moves me when it says I am bigger than what I'm supposed to be. So, um, bigger than supposed to be. Supposed to be. That's how my brain associates it. So when I feel that something is exciting, which doesn't happen all the time, I'm not saying like I don't have that feeling, even though I like the triangular cone um, that is up here. Triangular cone is that? Yeah. So the cone. Even though I like this cone, I wouldn't say, "Oh my god, that cone is so exciting." No, it's a cone. Like I like the shape, and I think I could do something interesting with the shape. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say like, "Oh, this painting is about this cone," or maybe it is. Maybe we can explore in our little options that we're gonna do with like those little studies. We can further explore if making the cone a hierarchical instance of the image is going to be interesting. We can 100% say like, okay, what if the image is about the party hat? The image is about the cone. But I would be lying if I told you that that's a moment that is holding, my interest to that point, let's say. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to, for now, force ourselves to try to understand that cone as something that is more relevant for our image than what I deem it to be. No. For now, we're going to just, yes, try to be mindful of certain spaces, but also be open enough to say like, wow, this is super interesting. Like I want to, I want to investigate this further in my painting session. And that is happening way more for me in the obvious part. I mean, the portrait, but also in the sleeve. This sleeve, I mean, and look at this. This is almost like high Renaissance little moment of a fold right here. The one that's would be answering to the joint of the arm, or it's caused by the joint, of the arm. So upper arm meeting like forearm, let's say. So that's like super super interesting to me. That I would 100% love to paint that little moment. There's a gesture doing that also. Okay, great. That's nice. 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 I have to check because I feel like I'm running out of space here. But that arm isn't going, this arm isn't doing this, like at a right angle. It's actually going back at an angle. So if it goes back, this distance, let's say that this is the distance of our forearm. If it's going back, it's going to be a lot shorter, way, way shorter. So I have to be mindful of making that shorter. So I don't have to stretch so much that arm. The more I stretch it, the less back it goes. Okay. So here you can sense the arm here. This fold is wonderful because it goes around. It's flatter over here. And then it's rounder as it turns. Does that. So we're good. In terms of spacing, we are wonderful. Golden. That's great. Good. Up here. Good. Just a little. Okay. So that is doing that. I don't think the head is too small for this arm. Is that arm feeling like way too long? I mean, now it's turning into like a mannerist painting, like a referential mannerist painting, like a Parmigianino, maybe. Going back. Okay, here. This is doing okay. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Okay. Maybe I'm getting a little excited with the width of this. So it could be wide. There's no problem in it being wide. I just need to find the arm underneath it. So that big cast shadow there is actually super, super important for that. Okay, let's find this little hand here. Is that good? I think that's good. What does that hand look like? Okay. It's this, and this. It's not super complicated. Okay. This, and there's that little bit of the thumb there. That looks good. Okay, that looks better in terms of like structure and that has to turn. This has to also turn. That was smaller. So I need to be a little more conservative here. I got a little too excited with those. But this is good. This is way, way better. Nice, nice, nice. So this arm feels like it belongs to, let me see, this is important here. But the arm feels like it belongs to the proportion of the body. It doesn't necessarily have to be. This was not like a breaking point for this image if it wasn't proportionate. But I do feel that it could take away from the kind of warmth of the embrace that can be seen or can be suggested by the portrait. I think it takes away if we want to do something that is like disproportionate, like a little more expressive, let's say. I think that's a little too forceful for the tone of this particular image. So we're good here. We're good. Finding that little bit of the mouth and lips going around. It's good. I just want to confirm that we're in a good place with this here. And I think we are. I think we are kind of running out of space here, but good. I just need to fit a lot of information into a tiny space, which is usually what drawing does many times. It fools us into believing that we need to expand, the real estate so that information can fit. And most of the times it's like, no. You have to make all that stuff fit into this very small space. And that's good. That's good. I think we're doing very good here. I don't know why I kept kind of going with the portrait, but I just wanted to make sure that spacing was right. Okay. Brow turning. Temple. Bit of light here. Nice kind of fleshy cheek. And a little bit that turns. Okay. This is a little higher. A little bit higher here. It goes down. Okay, that's nice. Nice. Okay, that's nice. That's very nice. Let's try to get this hand, this second hand, her fers right. That is wrapping underneath, like around, but underneath the pillow cushion. I don't know. Okay, I'm not gonna. Even though those fingers are separate, like you can sense each finger. I'm gonna try to treat it first like a big shape. Okay, and okay, okay. That feels okay. That feels, yeah, feels okay. That's good. The angle looks good. This looks good. Let's try to wrap this around. Okay, where's this? Here. Let me either grab another pencil or sharpen this one. Let's sharpen this. Okay, so let's wrap this one around. Okay, that's good. Maybe it wasn't too, that was a little too wide for this. So maybe it can be this because, like, this is a very cool moment where essentially elbow is here, but also hips turning are here. And I need to find the body underneath, even though the shape of this sweater is going to be bulkier than the body that's underneath. I mean, the shape of it is going to be dictated by the structure, the underlying structure. But it can, even though that underlying structure is telling it like where to break and what sort of traversal in space it should have, it can feel, bigger. It can even like swallow up form. It can devour form, the underlying forms, and turn way, way more abstract. But I have to be careful about this, for example. This is plane. These are planes turning. So I have to be able to identify when those folds are incredibly relevant. So this one's super, super important because it's telling me what's back, what's hips, and how they turn in space. So this one is super, super important. Okay. And there's like a peak of the shoulder that maybe I wasn't quite paying too much attention to, but start to understand it now. That is telling me that the bit of the back is actually very narrow up here. So it's not super, super wide. It has to feel narrower. It's actually like a break here. Then it does this. Okay, and now we have like extra space for the hair, which is really good because I thought I was running out of space for my hair here. A little bit of that ponytail, or not ponytail, but just the sort of end of her hair. Tips of her hair. Okay, same thing with here. Make that turn. Okay, good. I just want to see if that hoodie can also correspond to that little bit of the body turning. So that's good. Good. This is good, but this has to keep following this gesture. So that's important because her hips are way down over here. So that needs to happen. So even if we're able to find like super interesting shapes back here, which we have, I think these are really cool folds and peaks for that fold and a little bit of abstraction for it. We have to recognize that this has to be felt somehow. And even though this is not how high up her hips are going. This is this break here, let's say. It's not speaking about the actual plane where the body, like where her upper torso is breaking, or it's folding and then it's breaking so that we can have access to the hips. Not quite. It's not that her hips are going way up high. Like that can happen for sure. But it's not quite the case. But what we can feel is the hips pushing up, with that break of the of this in the sweater, that break that we have access to in the hoodie. So that one's super, super important. So we have to connect this with the idea of hips. Now, the cool thing about the hips is that we don't really see them, but we do see something that's wonderful. And it's this stripe. We have access to this beautiful, abstract, almost like serpent of a stripe that is telling us exactly what the body is doing, where it's breaking. So I'm not going to draw it perfectly now. Like we can 100% do that later when we can even do that in the painting moment. So the painting instance. But I'm going to try to follow the gesture of it. Okay. So that's super, super nice. So this little moment that is telling us how the leg is becoming hip, it doesn't become hip, but it attaches itself to the pelvis. So, the femur attaches itself to the pelvis, and pelvis is a separate shape. It dictates what's happening with the femur, with the leg, but there's a break in plane there. So, so we are getting that knowledge. We are gaining that knowledge from that little stripe, that little almost nothingness of a stripe that we have here. This is doing that. And then we have all these like huge folds that are great here, these breaks that I think they are a fantastic way to sort of culminate the painting. So that's really good. I think we are covering like a ton of ground with this. There's a ton of tension in this little moment. This is open. This is going to be so wonderful. The fact that this is open and there's a sort of connective tissue between, let's see, this goes up here. Does it, or is it a little bit higher? No, maybe it's here. Okay, this here, and then it actually drops. It's the top of the head. I have to mind my tangent over there. Love that this is almost like almost perpendicular. This is a gesture that kind of connects itself, and I love this gesture. Love this, this vertical, because that's the one that's like squishing the head into this flatness of this abstract flatness that is going to be this pillow cushion thing. So, okay, so that's really, really nice. Then there's little bits of hair here that are doing that. Then the bigger mass of hair that has an angle. I actually have to be super, super careful about that angle. Then this. Okay, what's happening here? That's dark. And I really, okay, this one has to do this here. Really, really like this little moment that is the break in the mattress. Very, very nice. We're almost done with this in the sense that we can clean this up a little bit later. But for now, okay, this is doing this and then that. That's giving me access to that plane of the arm. I'm checking now a bunch of like little stuff. I think the bigger stuff I'm satisfied with. That's the leg also. Okay, very nice. There's going to be a little plane here that flattens that part. There's going to be, I think those are the pockets maybe in here. And that's super interesting. And there's these sharp shadows underneath those shapes, which are totally nice. There is a, oh no, I thought, but no. I thought it was also like a sewing line there, but there's not. There's not. Okay, that's nice. Let's see. This is good. That's good. That's good. This is the arm, but we can also see, I think, a little bit of her chest here. So we have access to arm and what would be like a shoulder here, let's say, like wrapping around here. And that's in front. And then we have just a little bit of her torso back there. So that's good. Okay, that's super, super nice. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. What can we do here? I'll clear that up a little bit. That plane of those fingers that I'm missing. But not much. Don't get too involved in these fingers. They're not going to be like these are going to be way more important as gesture than finger, than middle finger, ring finger, pinky. That's not going to be important. So it's better to see them as gesture. But that's very nice, nice, nice. A little bit of the thumb turning towards shade, and a little bit of thumb peeking there. Let me see. Where's this corner of the mouth here? It's right there. And this one goes up, but pulls down. Great. And then there's that little pout. Great. That goes in. And then chin tucks in underneath. Okay. Okay. This and this little bit. This little bit on the plane of her nose. Okay. Okay. Here. I think I was missing this little angle a little bit. Plane turning. Brow. Love that brow. Just kind of doing this gesture right there. Okay. Squished. This is squished a little bit. Okay. I think that's good. That's good. We're learning about the gesture of our pose, by drawing it. A lot of this drawing is going to be lost when we do our underpainting and then when we do our actual painting. But all this mark making, all this investigation is supposed to just prepare us for that moment where we're going to paint it. So super, super nice. Okay. That's a nice drawing. Not because I did a whatever job at drawing it, but it's just a very, I think the drawing that we're doing is able to transmit in a satisfactory fashion. Yeah, satisfactory fashion. Is that how you would say it? But it's able to transmit that bit of embrace that's happening there. You know, fed and the bed and the pillow. You know, the mattress pillow. So I think it's very beautiful. It's almost like finding something to embrace, finding something to hug. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, so I think that that's super, super nice. Okay. Okay. This one. Okay. Okay. I really don't think that we need to do much more in this stage of the drawing. We could try to make a nicer drawing, but if we're going to do a painting, it's not necessarily reliant upon the drawing. I don't feel it's necessary to do that. I really, really don't. I think what we have right now is super, super helpful. Um, and it allows the other moments of the painting to also say, okay, now that this has been solved, let me see what I need to solve, which is actually like a really cool part of understanding indirect painting. It's like, hey, my job here is done. I'm not saying that I'm checking out. It's like I'm punching, out. Um, I'm clocking out. No, you don't have to do that. Like this idea, this notion of drawing still remains. So this responsibility of drawing still remains. That never, ever, ever, ever leaves. But its job, the job that it was supposed to do, that job is done in the sense that now you're prepared to go to step 2. And step 2 is going to be making an underpainting. We're going to do an umber underpainting for this one. So even though it's going to be a very, very narrow grisaille, I kind of like that it has like a little bit of play between that grisaille and the umber underpainting. So just so it doesn't become almost exclusively like a grisaille, like the ones that we were showing at the beginning. Yeah, I want it to be a little bit different. I don't want to do the exact same exercise. So in terms of the painting, I want it to be just a tiny bit different in the sense of how the painting's going to feel in the end. So I do feel this is very, very nice. Very, very nice. For now, I have like very obvious ideas in terms of what I can do with value. There's one. I mean, this is kind of going to be a future video, but there's one where I think the abstract. So one, I think the abstract could be my lightest light. Lightest light. So what does that? What does that mean? What does that mean? That shapes that are very geometric and can lend themselves to be read as quite abstract. Those I can do that. And I'm doing that because I think they're natively very light. So I can control all of my values here, even the ones in the portrait. So I would have to lower the contrast, lower those lights in the portrait, and have this be light and this, this stripe here be super light. So imagine that painting is kind of dark, but not really dark because we're going to inscribe it in a very narrow value range. So dark, but then super, super light. So there's going to be a high contrast here. So I need to be careful. This is going to be mid-tony. So we're going to mid-tone, mid-tony soprano. But this is going to be mid-tone because we're lowering those highlights. So it's going to be light, dark frame for the portrait. But then light, like boom, boom, two really sharp. Those are going to be sharp accents of light there. That's kind of interesting. The painting becomes about those two very almost exogenous, out of the rest of the order of things, moments which are highly abstract, and we're going to punch them up. So that's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. And there's one where everything else except even like that stripe, everything else, we push it back, we leave hands, and we leave portrait as our focal points, which can be super nice, and we flatten all of this. So I still like those instances where we're navigating naturalist to abstract, because I love that this kind of shares a value, like all of these moments. Well, this is a little bit darker. That's like a step darker, but they all kind of share this value that we can flatten it out. We can just separate it just a tiny bit in certain areas, like here and here, but almost everywhere else, we're just like, hey, let's search for a flat value that works perfectly. I think that's a second, for sure, that's a second option. And for the third one, I'm going to have to see. Because I think those first two are very, very obvious. But the third one, I don't know. Maybe, well, let's do a simple one for the third one. Let's think of this again, once again, large, probably the largest abstract shape, which is the couch. Let's make that our light, not quite our lightest light, but let's make that lighter than everything else. And that's super nice. So that shape is going to just cut into all these like other more organic shapes. So I think that could be very nice. I think that could be very, very nice. So we have our three options there. We'll see. I'll try to keep them in my brain. I'm not going to write them down because that's going to be a future video. But I think those three options are quite nice. They can be quite nice, and they can tell different stories, which is the most essential part of this video, which is, yes, we're going to use value, but we want to use value to tell a story. So that's what this painting is going to be about. So that's it. I'm going to stop here because I really do want to see if we want to clean this up a little bit. I want to see how nice I want this underdrawing to be. Maybe we do another kind of quick session trying to clean it up, and especially around here, I wouldn't mind cleaning that up so that those shapes are nice and accessible when I do my underpainting. But I don't know yet. But we could do a short video of that. But I think that for the underdrawing and the role that the underdrawing has and the responsibility that the underdrawing has, which is pretty much to say, hey, this is what the painting is going to look like. Like, these are the shapes that are going to become the image, that you're going to paint. The way everything is disposed in this space that's dictated by my page, but by my paper, I'm very happy. Like, I can see what I'm going to do. And I like this painting. Like, I like these shapes. I like the hierarchy that is being suggested by these shapes. I like how form is turning, through these shapes. I like the variety of these shapes. Some are more open and others are busier and then softer and then open again and then angular, like an accent of geometry up there. So I really like that. There's enough variety to make like an exciting painting in abstract terms. So I'm not defining it as like, oh, look at Fer and there's her hand. Like, I'm not thinking about shapes at this moment in those terms, in the makeup of those shapes, in how we denominate those shapes. No. I'm thinking of them as rhythm, space, what happens when one shape with one character is right next to another shape with another character, like what rhythm is created by the traversal of those two shapes. or through those two shapes better. So I'm thinking of the picture in those terms. Eventually, yes, those more abstract terms are going to land onto something that we can say, hey, those things configured a portrait, and a portrait that hopefully then evokes like an attitude, a tone, a feeling. So yeah, but for now, let's not anticipate all of that. For now, it's really good. We took our first step, and it's a nice, solid first step that is telling us, hey, you know what? If you want to keep going, I'm giving you enough information to do so in a kind of consolidated way. You know, like you feel like this cleared a ton of things up so that this first step feels like a solid step. Now, on to the second step. That's all you want when you do an indirect painting, that each step takes you a little bit closer, that enables the second step, you know, or the subsequent step, and it takes you a little bit closer to what you want, and it clears things up, you know, every step of the way. Okay, so that's going to be the video for all our subscribers. So thank you for this. If you are watching this today, this is the end of our first month, and even though I'm gonna write a little something to thank everyone, if you're hearing this right now, just know that we are incredibly grateful. We know that we have to work insanely hard to maintain this beautiful start, but we are willing to do so with like an open heart and open mind. Thank you for everyone that's been sharing their time and their space and their work in our Discord. And it makes this job easier when people are active and they communicate, and you know, they have also the willingness to make a safe space for painting, and you know, cool space to share any doubts or any shortcomings, or anything they feel like, you know, they are challenges that they're taking on in paintings that produce something that is giving them satisfaction. So, you know, it's really nice to see somebody say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, I think I did this kind of cool. Like, what do you guys think? You know, I'm very proud that Danny and I have put a lot of effort in trying to set the tone for just a cool space, you know. So thank you all, you know, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, and we'll try to continue to work, you know, really, really hard for everyone. And the cool thing is that we do it gladly. You know, this is what we wanted to do. So thank you. So that's it. That's going to be the end of this video. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you. Bye.